lovers, and welcome. I want to start off by saying I am so blessed to be in a position to suggest tips and tools and even products that can help you lead a tantric life of liberation and expansion. And one of my absolute favorite places to purchase spiritual and sexy items is Wands. Wands.com, spelled Wands. Wands sells, you guessed it, crystal pleasure wands, along with so much more, including yoni eggs, free bleed blankets, other amazing products for yoni steaming. I've been using these products and products similar to them for the better part of a decade, and they have been incredible allies in my journey of sexual healing and expanding my orgasmic potential. And I'm so grateful to be friends with the owner, Courtney. She's amazing. She has so generously provided us all with a discount code for 15% off, and that code is Leola. Leola. You can use it on their website, www.wands.com. Again, the code is Leola, Leola, for 15% off. I'll also make sure that this is linked in the show notes. So thank you for listening, and you're welcome for the inevitable pleasure and healing that is coming your way with these products. Now, let's get into the episode. Welcome to Talk Tantra to Me. It is such an honor to be holding space for this divine knowledge to make its way into your ears and lifestyle. Today, I talk Tantra with one of my close sisters here in Austin, Luna Battalia. Luna creates rites of passage for devotional leaders. She is a maven of brand strategy and design, and she is also one of the most grounded yet divinely embodied humans I know. She moves in this world as a prayer. She treats life like a ritual. She has so much love to give. I see her finding divinity and love in each moment and each person, and it's so beautiful and inspiring. And I feel so much gratitude to have her in my life as a friend and like as a close friend and as a part of our like tight Austin sisterhood. And I'm also just so grateful for what she creates in the world, her content, how she serves her clients and her community. And I'm just so appreciative that she's here on the podcast to offer her perspective of living an expansive life. So thank you, Luna, for being here. I'd love to start just by sharing a little bit more about how we know each other, how we met. I've shared with Luna this, that the first time, like the first times, maybe not the first time that I met her, but like in those original times, there's like this group of girls in Austin, and we're kind of like coalescing, I guess, or like there was this moment of like a group kind of coming together, and it's like, who's in this basically. And around that time, you had been in my sphere, but I started to feel you more, and I was really like, this is a cool woman. Like, she is so fucking cool. She's showing up at this potluck with raw cheese and like, you know, her like friend's antelope sausage or something. And I'm just like, I vibe like, yes, like I want more of that in my life. And I also was like, I think that there was a little bit of story for me around like, she's a little maybe too cool for me and she knows it and she doesn't like me, which isn't the reality, as we've like come to share. And the more I got to know you, and the more I leaned into like my desire to know you, the more I actually saw your real self. And I'm so happy that that happened, because I feel like you're such an asset to my life personally.
Thank you. I think we both had that cool girl thing that we made the other person a cool girl, and we're like, how do I relate with this cool girl? Because I did that to you too.
So precious. Okay, so what has your journey been like getting to where you are now, that you are such an embodied leader and evidence of godly living in a way? Like, I know your story a bit more, but I'd love if you could share with the listeners so they can see the portals and the initiations that you've been through to become this woman.
That's a big one. Yeah. A lot of my cultivation of self centers around learning how to grieve and having big initiations at a young age that could have been guided into how to handle death, big death, um, at a young age. At the time of puberty, my mom passed away when I was 13, and she was sick, and so I knew that was happening, and I was prepared as best I could with the people around me for that. But then there's grief on the other side, which I don't think anybody really knew how, like, what to do with or how to prepare for or have that grief literacy. And so I kind of really found a lot of fun dissociative activities in my teens and 20s to keep me from feeling a lot of uncomfortable feelings that I didn't really know how to or was prepared to feel. And that looked like the kind of promiscuous party girl. And that was fun. But also like not the level of like depth that and loyalty and commitment that I naturally crave. And so I started to kind of see how those things were connected in my early 20s and start to change some habits and start to feel my feelings.
Mm.
And that led me in a very different direction than the lifestyle that I had before. And it led me to a really beautiful relationship that had a lot of psychedelic experiences that really expanded my mind and eventually led to a big kind of samadhi experience where I existed for 3 days in bliss without food or sleep. And and it really like changed the entire trajectory of my life. I was like smoking cigarettes, drinking a ton of whiskey, like partying in LA with these like musicians and artists and living down, in the artsy district and doing all these things. And I just literally gave my 2 weeks notice, broke up with my partner, moved to Topanga in the woods, and stopped drinking and smoking like immediately, like cold turkey the next day. And it changed my life. And I really needed that. And no one was ever going to be like, hey, what's going on with you? I'm really curious. Like, why are you behaving these ways? Like, what's
Mm.
underneath that? Like, that could have happened for probably a decade and nobody did that because I'm pretty like kind of seemingly on the surface got it all together, but really also having moments where everything is catastrophe and mess. And so I changed my life because I was afraid that God or whatever this energy was that was trying to get me to wake up again and again and again in moments of my life, every few years, every few months, that energy was going to stop. They were going to give up on me. They're going to be like, well, we've tried so many times. She's obviously not willing. Let's move on. And that was the thought I had. And I was like, oh my God, okay, I'll do it. Whatever it is, like, I'll change my life. Like, I give everything. I'm full devotion. If you have me living under a bridge, like, so be it. That's, whatever.
Mm.
And so I really drastically changed my life and swung the pendulum to the complete opposite side of like deep, immersive mystery school studies and like a lot of time out of time and traveling with elders and indigenous peoples and ceremonies and rituals and learning and apprenticing and barefoot, sold my entire wardrobe with like 6 Chanel blue clay jackets and 70 pairs of designer pumps and like lived off selling my designer closet for 3 years.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And then I kind of like have found the center. Like I've come back to having this chapter of fashion and debauchery and parties to mega spiritual asceticism and practice to what feels like a good middle ground for me now. And I know that will likely change again, but that's kind of the thing. And so through that, grief was the big portal and teacher. Learning how to feel my feelings, learning how to grieve, learning how to become really intimate, like a lover with grief as this blessing in my life that was helping me to shed false identities of self and really remember who I truly, truly am. Because I'm not a daughter who lost her mother. I'm not a person who lost this partner. I'm not a person who lost this house or this job or whatever the things are that we grieve. There's everything, all those attachments are temporary things that can go away. They leave. And
Mm-hmm.
so through feeling that, I got to really find like the essence, which feels like an innocent child of God
Mm.
or a woman of devotion, or, like a vehicle for grace, like these things that are unchangeable identities that can't leave me no matter what changes, temporal things happen in my life.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And I love that even I learned some things about you in that intro. I didn't know some of these pieces, but it does bring me to this piece of seeing you today and understanding like the two experiences that you had that were on very different extremes and bringing them together. And it brings to mind one time in a ceremony with you, we were talking about what would be on our tombstone. I think. And you said she was primal and bougie or something like that, right?
Primal, but bougie,
Primal
friend to
but bougie.
most.
Say it again. Sorry.
Primal, but bougie, friend to most.
It's so great. And it's so representative of who I know you to be. And also, again, like how I feel about our group of women here in Austin. So many of us have gone into the depths of our spirituality, but also have this ability to have human experiences that are, maybe like could, with a completely different intention, could be even damaging or not necessarily like in the highest for some people, but there's an intention that's brought in with the women in our group that really invites in holistic human expression, including the primal and the sexual and the dark, um in a really divine way. And I love that. And I really like that you brought in this piece of grief because it's something that I know you for. And it's and I feel like that's one of the reasons that you're in my life, is to be a teacher of how to hold grief and how to move through grief, um, and process it in a really powerful, beautiful way. And I've had a similar experience around death where I felt like death was my lover. Death is like seducing me in every moment. It's like death is like, I love you so much, I want to eat you alive kind of energy. Like, like the worms in the dirt and like the decaying material. It's like it's a hard thing to wrap your mind around, let alone let your body feel. And I'm curious how that feeling has supported you in stepping into leadership, stepping into purpose, finding love. I mean, that's a lot of different things here, and I'm like casting you a wide net, but wherever you want to go with it, I'm I'm enamored.
I think it's willingness. And a lot of times when this comes up for other people, it's like, but I don't know how. I don't know how to grieve. I don't know how to go into this. I don't know how to be with this. I don't know how to feel this. Like, what do I do? Right. And they're asking someone like, okay, that sounds great. Like grieving, that sounds great. Like, how do I do it? And my go-to is always don't focus on how, focus on willingness.
Mm,
Because our will, just the willingness to go into it, will provide the way. And if we're focused on how, when we're, okay, I'm gonna do this journaling practice, and then we get into this, grief is in the kairos, not the
mhm.
chronos. It's in this like timelessness, right? Like there's no sense of time. It people who grieve, I think in our culture, it's like, okay, you got to get back to work, and you got to get back to what you're doing, and there's so many things to take care of, and there isn't the community holding, like, I've got your meals for a while, like everyone's helping, and you don't have to worry, you don't have to come back to work, and this is a big loss, and like letting it take the time it takes, and then integrating back in. But it is like a time out of time portal. And so when
Yeah.
we're trying to figure out what to do or how to do it, it's in this time, it's in like the temporal world instead of the time out of time world. And so I think it's the willingness to even let go of those identities that get a lot done and do these things, and like just go into this kind of mystery where you don't know what's going to happen. It's like ceremony. And
Hmm.
just like a relationship, just like starting a business, it's kind of this unknown place, but our will to show up every day kind of helps us do that. And so by learning how to grieve and having the willingness to go into these places, it cultivated a lot of will. It cultivated a lot of willingness to be
Mm-hmm.
with discomfort, to be with things that could, I don't want to say easily, but seemingly easily be like, oh, one day I'll deal with that. And then it kind of forces you.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about grief like waves, and then another wave comes. And sometimes the waves are like big and consistent, and sometimes they're like shallow, and every now and then they happen. But the ocean never stops undulating. And I think of grief as like there are passages in my life where it's been this big portal. And then it's just this friend that like comes and knocks on your door every once in a while. And it's
Yeah.
Rumi has this beautiful poem of like welcoming it in, letting it take your house and create destruction because you never know what delight it might have for you.
Yeah. Can you
So
be
I think that
ravished by
will,
it?
so yeah, it's like the willingness to, it's the unknown. It's like being with a
Mhm.
new partner, it's like the unknown. Starting a business, the unknown. Being with a new client dynamic is the unknown. It's like the willingness to say yes to these things that can feel big and scary and like
Vulnerable.
vulnerable and obviously going to bring up stuff, and the willingness to go, okay, I know that I not only want to go here to find out what happens, but I trust in my ability to. And I think that's something that's a muscle that's cultivated by going into these bigger life passages.
Yeah, this message of willingness, I feel, is so needed right now. I experienced that a lot of the work that's being really circulated is an equally powerful message that's needed, but is also not complete in that it says something along the lines of, if you're not a fuck yes, then you're a fuck no, and you can choose your mindset and like and choose the higher and whatever it is. And yes, like listen to your body and choose something expansive, and being willing to surrender to what is there, and maybe that's the path to make your shift. Or yeah, it's really uncomfortable to feel into and to say yes to these vulnerable moments and feelings and emotions and experiences. But if it's there, maybe there's a message in that, and it's not about it not being a yes or it not feeling good. It's about, is there a lesson in the discomfort? Is there a lesson in the mess, in the chaos, in the grief? And I think that it's a balance to, I think, again, it's important to recognize that, yes, you can choose your way out of things, and you can, um, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but yeah, it's just the message. If it's not a fuck yes, then it's a fuck no, I think is
Hmm.
keeping a lot of people from the magic that comes from leaning in and being
Yeah.
willing to feel the hard stuff. And I like
Yeah.
that
And
you brought
it's
that.
like black and white, right? And I think in that black and white, there's not a ton of room for curiosity, which for me is like, okay, when that grief came, I had to learn how to get curious with it. What are you here for?
Hmm.
What do you, what is this courtship? Like, what do you want from me? And to get curious, and like, it doesn't feel like a fuck yes. Like, yes, I want to go into this really dark portal, but what I got out of it and who I became from it was, looking back, I can say I would say yes to 1,000 times in ecstatic joy because I know where it brought me. And it's it's like, okay, it wasn't like a full fuck yes for me to jump into this initiation, but it was like I had to find a yes because it was disrupting my life by pretending that I could say keep saying no to it because it didn't feel good. And I think when we associate yes with this ecstatic, joyful feeling, because for me, expansion, like for me, it's about expansion and finding a sense of trust, and me finding that within myself actually created a lot of relaxation.
Mm. And that relaxation is, in a way, freedom, which I think is what so many of us are looking for and searching for. And we think that we need to take action or do a thing or make something happen to achieve the freedom. And a lot of times the freedom comes from just surrendering and being willing,
Mhm.
which is an interesting lesson to learn. One I'm still learning. That being said, you are a leader in the way that you show up. You're a leader in business, and you also are a leader of leaders. And I'd love to hear from you what leadership means to you. Like, what does it mean to be a leader in today's day and age, and especially as we see society evolving and, you know, our collective consciousness rising in a way, what does leadership mean?
Yeah, you could ask me tomorrow at 4 o'clock and I'd probably say something different. But um, for me, my work is really based around maturity and having the willingness to step into the next, to grow up every day, right? Like we're always growing and meeting life. And when I look at like a mytho-psychological way of relating to life, like there's there's all these maps that can be layered over one another that is like a clock, and our aging and the seasons, and it's not like a, it's like a spiral. It just keeps going and going and going and going, and we can grow that spiral really big. And for me, being willing to be where I'm at right now helps me glean wisdom and maturity and experience that I can carry forward into the next thing, initiation, process, relationship, whatever. And so by being willing to be where I am and gleaning what's here for me, to me, that is maturity. It's the willingness to go, how can I grow? How can I learn? How can I step into more of myself? And I see the kind of immature versions of ourselves as like two things. Like one is like, I don't need anybody's help. And the other is, somebody please help me. Somebody, I can't figure it out. Do it for me. Like those two energies. And like the mature version of ourselves is like, okay, this is difficult and I can do hard things and I'm going to figure it
Mm-hmm.
out. And sometimes figuring it out means asking for help, but I can do hard things. I'm willing to figure it out. I'm willing to step into this. I'm willing to step forward. This calling that's come to me, that each person has, like when we feel this, oh, there's a calling, there's this life calling me forward into action, into purpose. Where's where's our like, okay, I feel this deep yes that this is my calling, this is my purpose. And I know at times it's going to be hard. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I trust that I can find a way. And it's, to me, it's this version of I can versus I can't psychologically,
Mm-hmm.
which is leadership. And it's not like capital I can and nobody else can.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the type of leadership that I'm into. It's like I can because I'm supported by friends and family, because I have seen and unseen allies, because I know that I'm not alone, because I don't have to do it all on my own, that this person has resources that I could benefit from bringing them in. And to me, it's the leadership to take those actions and have that willingness to mature ourselves to take on more responsibility. Because for me, responsibility and freedom are directly related. And
Mm-hmm.
so leadership for me is taking on the responsibility that actually leads to more freedom, not just for myself or like wealth for myself and my family, but freedom for, all beings in all realms.
Powerful. Yeah, the listener might have heard me like giggle a bit through that when you were talking about like the immature versus the mature pieces. And the giggle came from a place of like, yes, all of that exists within me too. And like I see the inner child that's like, help me, please. And the inner teenager that's like, I don't need any help. And then also the mature piece that eventually steps forth and has built enough trust within myself and within God, you know, to get to a place where I can lean in and find that willingness and find that maturity. And this relates to something that I love that I took from your content around hiring God as your CEO, because at the end of the day, it's not always about you. And a lot of the time, it's not about you. And like what is powerful in your leadership and your impact is really about just letting the God, the divine, the ritual come through you and you're just a vehicle for it. And I think a lot of times what keeps people from stepping into leadership is the fear that they're not going to do it right, or that they're not worthy of it, or that they're going to mess it up, and really just making it about them rather than the CEO, who is God. So I'd love to speak about that a little bit. Hello, lovers. Please bear with me for a brief interruption with a vulnerable share and offer from my heart. So when I first began my journey with spiritual intimacy and sacred sexuality, all I could afford were books and free podcasts. I was just out of college in my early 20s and honestly very, very broke. And I'm so grateful for all the complimentary, kind words and affordable wisdom that have gotten me where I am today. Price shouldn't deter you from healing. It shouldn't deter you from living the life you love or from reclaiming the most powerful energy in your body. It's my belief that time and commitment are also very powerful investments, especially when you're just dipping your toes in the water. You'll know when it's time to make the bigger cash investments in your journey. But let's begin together today with free love from my heart to yours. As you've already discovered, this podcast is free and it includes so much life-changing wisdom, but I'd also love to guide you to some free offers that are on my website, including a downloadable sexual shadow work workbook and a pleasure positive meditation. Both of these resources are amazing places to start in integrating the tantric principles of expansion and liberation into your life. And you can access these at www.talktantratome.com/free or find a direct link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, when you were talking about all the three different parts inside of you, it would just reminded me of like a lot of my clients, big women with big visions, and usually have like companies, nonprofits that are really changing the world in some kind of way. And they're feeling this call to go into the next chapter. And they're like, okay, I'm ready. And like what often happens is the relationship, you work in the tantric field. So like it's all relational, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's like that kind of dance between witnessing and expressing, giving and receiving is Tantra. And so in these mentorships that I have, it's okay, how can you relate with that part of yourself? You're saying all these beliefs, like I can't, like the things that you gave as examples that all live inside of us, like Oprah has an I can't voice. But it's like, how do we relate to it? And how do
Mm-hmm.
we connect with that version of ourselves? And so for me, it's all about healing happens in the relational field. And so if there's a little hiccup or resistance or like edge in my business, there's something that I get to relate to, whether it's a part of myself or a part of the entity that is my business itself, because I see that as a separate entity that has its own purpose, like a child of mine. So I
Mm-hmm.
birthed my business into the world, yet it has its own purpose beyond me. It will live on
Mm-hmm.
beyond me. And my job is just to create the best environment for it with its unique abilities to thrive. And so how can I create the best environment for it to thrive? And, you know, for me, like hiring God as my CEO is that guidance. It's that that trust that I don't have to do it all on my own, that I'm not alone, that the way will be shown. And so a lot of times I talk business strategy and I can map out, and my mind works in maps, and I can map out teams and roles and order of operations and strategies and all these things. And I love doing that. And then sometimes we're just like, I'll ask, well, did you pray about it? Did you ask God for help? Did like whatever the thing is, like we can troubleshoot and we can make a map and we can like find a way out. But did you just pray about it? Did you like bring it to your altar? Whatever God is for you. And did you ask for help?
Yeah.
And
What
not
would
just like
you,
me as their
sorry, go
coach
ahead.
ask for help, but like the bigger one. Sorry.
Um, yes, I love all that. And I'm curious what you would say to people that are like, that doesn't mix, or like I can't bring my business to my altar, or like praying is like crunchy for whatever reason. I'm curious what you'd say to those people.
Yeah, I mean, find your own way, right? Like prayer is whatever it means to you. There isn't like a right way to pray, but it is filled with passion. Prayer is not like to me, I wouldn't relate to it as like the reciting of this indoctrinated thing and repetition, unless you can find a passionate, ecstatic, embodied state with that thing that you're saying. Say it's like a prayer that you grew up with in your childhood that like doesn't have any meaning. You might find later in life that there's an embodied place in within you that can say it, and all of a sudden you get it. You're like, oh, I get it. Like I totally get this
Mm-hmm.
prayer. And sometimes it's just the sound. It's the expression of your frustration. It's the dance within you. Sometimes it's saying a prayer of mine is show me the way. Show me the
Mm-hmm.
way, show me the way, show me the way, show me the way, show me the way. Like show me the way. Life. I'm saying it to life, whatever that is. God, life is like the same for me.
Yeah,
So
and
it's finding your own way. What does prayer look like for you?
yeah, and one thing that's worked well for me, I used to really struggle with the like let go and let God and surrender to God, surrender your, like I grew up in a very
Mhm.
Christian background, and it felt a bit disempowering at times. I mean, obviously, there were some incredible teachings in the religion that I was raised in, and there were lots of teachings that were patriarchal and not serving me. And I really struggled with this concept. And now I just see God as just an extension of myself, like as a higher self, if you will, but obviously like different and bigger too. I mean, I don't know. It's like, I think just a classic tantric practice is seeing the divine in everything and seeing the divine in you. And how can you relate to God in that way as like your highest self? And that could maybe create more invitation to surrender, because you're actually surrendering to what you trust is the highest love and the highest truth, and in is in relation to you in that way. And I'd love to kind of layer in now. So you're talking about business as like you have a relationship to your business, you have a relationship to your purpose. And I'd love to veer into how this relates to your romantic relationships. And if you're willing to share a little bit about how things have shifted for you in that space, because I've known you in different iterations of your love life, and was scrolling back through some of your content last night in preparation for this interview, and saw one of your posts about how you're treating dating and your business in similar ways. And I thought it was really beautiful and powerful. And I know that there's so many incredible individuals, especially women, listening to this podcast that are like, I've got this beautiful purpose that I feel so in devotion to, and I want to have space for a man. And like, how has that looked and evolved for you?
Mm. I'm a relational being. I love being in relationship, whether it's with myself or my friends, but particularly in partnership. And I was married. I was with someone for about 7 years and divorced. And that portal was also a grief portal and really prepared me. Like grief there became such a beautiful ally to help me shed false identities of self again and really step into the deep knowing and remembrance of who I really am.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like how you were talking about with God, like change the word, like then it's love, right? Let go and let love lead. um, it's it's kind of like that moment where that the remembrance is always coming back to the nature that I know that I am. And those like sticky breakups or things can bring out shadowy parts of ourselves that need our love and attention. And so I really devoted myself to that. And in how I related to myself during that passage, which is not that long ago, I related to myself in a way that shaped how I can be in partnership. So relating to myself in the divorce with love and care and attention and presence and honesty and willingness and vulnerability and asking for help and all these things that I was, doing in my life, but really like tripled down on, like really
Mm-hmm.
learned how to do in a whole new way, prepared me to show up in relationship like that in the next 3x triple down incarnation of relationship. And so I think um that's a big piece, is like how I related to myself during a really hard passage prepared, and how I related to my ex prepared me to be with the man that I'm with today, by doing that work, by doing it well, by doing it with maturity, and like not in all moments for sure, but coming back to that responsibility and maturity and finding my way has allowed me to have a healthier relationship on the other side. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm such a depth whore, and I want that like rich, deep feeling, ride on a magical carpet through the dark mysteries kind of love, and like into the light of expansion like kind of love, like 24/7, while we do the mundane laundry and blah blah blah. And so I have that, but it requires willingness, and it requires personal responsibility again and again and again and again and again and again. I think that for me, my pattern is very much like I'm a reflector and refiner. So I reflect and refine, reflect and refine, reflect and refine. How could I have done that better? Oh, that was an interesting experience. What went a little sticky? How could I do that better? And so I have this like better improvement mentality that is a real asset, and also a detriment in relationship, because other people might just want to be where they are and not
Mm-hmm.
like move into that, how do we make this better, how do we fix this, how do we like shift into like not, and so there's like, I think this, relationship is so powerful and beautiful because it's so expansive. It's really invited me into seeing a life fully possible, feeling not even just the possibility, like the reality of it in my life currently happening, that is so much bigger and impactful and more responsibility than I really like ever really acknowledged could be possible. And it's inviting me to do some personal cultivation of capacity and willingness and stretching that is really great. I'm really grateful for that. And it's not always as easeful as I
Yeah.
think we think it could be, or should be rather.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I want to just repeat a couple of phrases that you said just to land them because I really like them. You said you love being a depth whore, and I was like, yes,
That's why we're
yes,
friends.
same. And riding a magic carpet through the dark mysteries while we do the laundry. That wasn't the exact phrasing, but that was like and I was like, yeah, I love it. Okay, cool. So I hear you like, okay, so speaking into this piece on this expectation that there should be ease and it should be simple and it's not, and also in this relationship to I see that in my relationship and in my relationship to the world, in what people share about their relationships, and like how so much I've seen is like people struggling behind closed doors, whether it be with their partner or themselves or their grief or their business or whatever it is. And this gift that I feel like I've stumbled upon in our community in Austin, and like how we have this group of people that are in sort of different stages of their life and are having different struggles and are able to support each other and feel each other in that. And I just want to say how beautiful it is and how much I invite others to create this, you know, if and how they can. And maybe we can talk about some ways that we could suggest that for people. But I'm also hearing this transition into talking about the capacity to
Mm.
receive it, to feel all of that. And I know that was something that before we got on this call, you were talking about the initiation of that. And so I'd love if you could expand more there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my work with leadership and maturity has always kind of been on this same trajectory, and business and service work and life purpose has always been the vehicle for looking at that through.
Mm-hmm.
And now, and relationship has kind of been fairly easy, and and not that it's not easy now, it's extremely easy. Or ease, full of ease. It's not easy, but it's easeful, which is
Mm-hmm.
not a word. It's a Luna word, but I think that now it's like, oh, I see the capacity. Like now I'm in a partnership where like our purpose is actually joined beyond creating family and children and that kind of legacy. It is literal structures, tending land,
Mm-hmm.
temples. My partner is an like a phenomenal architect, designer, and builder. And we both, and we're both artists and see beauty and like love people and want people to live in healthy, non-toxic, mold-free, amazing homes that also change the planet and change the way we think about building and efficiency and all these things that are like, wow, that's so exciting and so fun that we found each other. But it also is like, wow, that's a lot to hold the expansion of my business, his business, starting a family, having the money and the community and the resources to do, and the what's the word I want, like how people view you, like the
Perception?
reputation
Okay.
to have the reputation to like be called into these opportunities. And I can feel like the immense opportunities that await our lives together. And I'm a full fuck yes to all of them. And I know that they're way bigger than who I am in this moment, or at least who I've fully remembered myself to be in this moment, right? Like it's all there. I have to remember it and like own it. So I feel that with that, like with potential like wealth, like land equals wealth, but like it's not about our personal wealth as much as like how does this create communities? How does this create sanctuaries for people? How does this create like, he's working on projects for like potential places for veterans to go after war, like community centers. Like this is the thing. And so one of my things is that it has come through in this vision is also um more economic housing for homelessness in certain cities that are more healthy and places that can actually be sanctuaries for people to actually heal and do things. And like, who knows what's going to happen, but those visions that continue to keep coming in, and not even just visions, like literal real opportunities and contracts and things and land that is here right now that we're responsible for. And it
Mm-hmm.
feels like a responsibility that I don't take lightly, to really tend land, to cultivate it, to honor it, to allow it to thrive in a world that often is not prioritizing that is a huge responsibility to say yes to. And so for me, I'm in this stage of like, okay, preparing myself. It's preconception
Mm-hmm.
in a number of ways beyond the conceiving of a child. It's conceiving this life together. It's conceiving this bigger thing. And we came in hard and quick. And I think that like the catching up, like all the energy and the catching up with it and sometimes feeling the reality of it and being like, wow, this is all really big. And like, I'm such a yes, and checking in and both of us being like, I'm such a yes. And also like, it's a lot, it's big, it's a lot of responsibility. and we're so capable. Like, it might be hard and we can do hard things. Like, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would put my life in your hands. Is how I feel about about all of this. And it is a lot of responsibility. And I feel like you've been preparing for this for lifetimes. And I'm so excited to see what's created. And I'm so excited to be close to you and actually to, in a way, like put my life in your partner's hands, in that like we want to build this community together. And like Andrew and I are super on board in investing in this and creating evidence of a new way of being and relating to each other and the land and the animals and our children and our elders, and just bringing it into a more holistic and meaningful place, and seeing you as such a leader in that. And I have so much gratitude to you for doing the work to learn about these things and hold that knowledge, and then also create a space for it to thrive and to spread and to be remembered. It's just incredible. And I don't have a question on this, but I just have that. I'm not sure if you have something else you want to add. Otherwise, I can come up with something.
No, I'm thinking about like when you do something really intentionally, like conceive a child.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about it and you're doing it really intentionally, you're probably going to take like certain vitamins and certain things and like maybe do some like inner work or shift your diet, or like there's preparation, right? And so for me,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see this. I have this like tattoo here. It's the medicine wheel, and it's basically like a map. Here's where I'm at. Here's where I'd like to go. Here's where I'm being called to go. Okay, now I can kind of see the trajectory and I can prepare for it. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, that's like really how I want to live my life, with the intimacy of knowing where I'm really at, the intimacy of feeling where I'm being called to, and really being available and listening for that guidance and direction and being shown the way. And then looking at, okay, if I'm here and this is here, like, what does this look like? What are the many, many, many paths that could get me there? Which paths have the most ease? And which paths are like held in this current of grace? And more of that is going to become transparent as I take each step. And I
Yeah.
can't map out the whole thing, but I can take the next step, and I can take the next step, and I can take the next step. And those steps sometimes require preparation. You go into the wilderness, you know where you're going. You're going to bring certain gear based on where you're going. It's preparing ourselves. And so I think that as your listeners, you, me, are like feeling this call into more visions, more responsibility, more impact, it's like, oh, cool. What are the things that I need to do to prepare myself? I need to practice patience. That's going to be the most preparing thing for me. Okay, great. Like, what are ways I practice patience? And when we're doing it consciously, it doesn't need to come up in all these like
Mm.
unconscious bang on your door, you're gonna fucking learn this kind of ways. It's like, okay, I'm willing, like asking to learn them with grace and finding your way to be prepared without being forced to be prepared, because it'll happen either way.
Yeah, it's I love that you brought that in. It's one of my favorite sex magic practices. And I actually shared before we started recording that I did this as preparing for motherhood. I did a sex magic practice that was like anything that's like blocking me or us from being the
Mm.
best parents, the best stewards of life. Bring it forth, bring us the initiations, let's go. And so sometimes it's about calling in the lessons and less about calling in the thing, because it's the lesson that's keeping you from the thing that's like right on the other side of the veil, anyways. I feel like we're getting to a good place to land. Is there anything you want to add to that or otherwise to close up our conversation?
No, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful that we get to be here together and we get to do life together in this chapter and many chapters beyond this. And I'm so grateful that you've had me on your show today. I'm, yeah, so pleased to be here with you and your community.
Me too. Where can people find you, learn more about your work, and anything you want to share on that?
Yeah, lunaloveleadership.com and Luna Battalia on Instagram. And yeah, I basically do the same two things over and over: mentorships and then brand catalyst, which is strategy and design. So would love to support any leaders listening that feel the call.
Amazing. Thank you again, Luna, for joining me today. And I also want to express my gratitude to the listener. Thank you for opening yourself up to leadership and to impact and community and deepening incredibly into love and relating and life in general. With so much gratitude and love, have a sexy and spiritual day. And I'll catch you next week on Talk Tantra to Me. Ta-ta. Oops, just kidding. Still here. I have one last thing for y'all. I want to say that the internet is a really, really special place. It's why we're all here right now. And many of us, including me, wouldn't have discovered Tantra or sacred sexuality if it weren't for this nifty invention of the 20th century. And almost none of you would have found my work and my vision without it. I love the internet, and I deeply desire to expand beyond it, to experience more real life love, community, and connection. So I invite you to check out upcoming Tantra events at www.talktantratome.com/events, or click the link in the show notes. I can't wait to give you a big squeeze in real life. Okay, now that's it. Ta-ta for real. Ta-ta.